Azerbaijani touch.
Yes, this is true. First of all, welcome to Azerbaijan. Thank you for coming, and thank you for paying attention to our country. And I'm very glad that you are spending in Azerbaijan several days, so that will be a good time in order to know our country, our people more. And you're absolutely right that we preserve the authentic origin of our cities, of our achievements, and at the same time we are modernizing the country. So what you see in Baku is a combination of modernity and traditionalism, and I think they do not confront, they are not in contradiction. And that was done deliberately because in such a historical city as Baku, first objective is to preserve our history, our architectural monuments, and at the same time to allow city to develop. And in Baku you can see both. So I think it's really important asset, and thank you for noticing that.
We've been to quite a number of cities, not as many as you have been, but I must say Baku is unlike any city that I've been to. First of all, to begin our interview, Mr. President, we want to acknowledge that this is the 100th birth anniversary of your late father, the national leader, Gaidar Aliyev, who was not only considered the national leader, the founding father of modern-day Azerbaijan, but really a founder of Chinese-Azerbaijani friendship. So first of all our respect.
Thank you very much. You're absolutely right. Gaidar Aliyev was a man who built the statehood and put Azerbaijan on the track of development, put an end to civil war, to disorganization of the country, to chaotic situation which existed in the beginning of 90s, and elaborated the foreign policy and domestic policy priorities which we are following now. Of course, the world has changed for 30 years, but our primary objectives has not changed. This is a strengthening of our statehood, our proactive foreign policy based on our national interests, and economic and social development of Azerbaijan, along with very active regional policy. And of course, the main objective from the first days of independence was the restoration of territorial integrity of our country, which has been achieved something more than 2 years ago. And you're absolutely right, he played a very important role in the development of Chinese-Azerbaijani relations. His visit to China and meetings with the Chinese leaders actually created a framework for our cooperation. At that time, Azerbaijan was not very well known in the world. Therefore, that was a foundation, and I'm very glad that now relations between our two countries develop very successfully, cover many more areas, so agenda is much broader than it was 30 years ago, and they're based on mutual respect and friendship.
Many Chinese viewers noticed that besides the official agendas of your father, the late president's visit to China, he would visit average Chinese families to check out the lives of everyday Chinese people, sitting with Chinese families, shaking hands with primary school kids, visiting the Chinese countryside. Actually, we got some photos here that we thought might need some further elaboration from you. This photo was taken in the 90s, right?
Yes, exactly.
Between him and a Chinese family.
Yeah.
This is a great photo. Sitting among the people.
Yes, but this is actually illustrates what you said, that he was really very interested not only in official contacts, but also to establish people-to-people relations. And this photo actually demonstrates that.
And this one? He was obviously interacting with a primary school student, I guess,
yes.
Who sent him a birthday present. You like it?
Yes. Yeah, really, that's good illustration of what you've mentioned.
And of course, the Great Wall, the Forbidden City,
Yes.
the tours over
Yes,
there.
yes.
So, how would your father tell you about China and his China trips? What was China like to him? And then, how do you see the continuity of this friendship from one generation to another?
Well, actually, for him, China was not something which he had to discover. He was well aware about the development of China in different times when he was senior deputy prime minister of the Soviet government. He had many occasions to meet Chinese representatives, and he was well aware about the dynamism, the development of your country. And when he became president of independent Azerbaijan, of course, one of the main foreign policy priorities was to establish bilateral relations. And I remember when he returned from his official visit to China, he was very impressed. He saw the growing power. That was almost 30 years ago. He saw a consolidated society and a country which has its very clear objectives. And meeting with ordinary people actually was part of his character. He did the same here, as you can imagine, in Azerbaijan, always trying to feel the pulse of society, to see how people live, what do they think, what are their problems, what their aspirations. And therefore, it was natural that he wanted also to have this feedback from ordinary Chinese people. So actually, the foundation of our bilateral relations were laid after that historical visit, and since that time, they have a very big potential for dynamic development.
We see statues of your father in a lot of places here in Baku, and also a lot of streets were made in his name, memorials in his honor. I feel that there's something deeper than what everything appears. There's something deeper about the respect and affection from you to your father. What does your father mean to you personally?
Well, as for every person, the parents, especially in the society like Azerbaijan, are always very dear to the children. And Azerbaijan society, based on traditional values, values of the families, and these traditions are very deep. And it is important that we now, after more than 30 years of independence, living in the global environment, manage to preserve these family values and respect to the elderly. And this is a foundation of our society. For me, as for any other Azerbaijani, the father is a very dear person, the person whom you want to look like, especially when you can be proud of your father. This is a big happiness for me because I was with him during the most difficult times for him personally and for Azerbaijani people, especially when Soviet army attacked Azerbaijan on the 20th January 1990. He raised his voice. He was actually almost the only one who raised his voice denouncing that bloody attack. And he really understood that that can cost him a lot. We were living in the Soviet country. It was still 2 years before the Soviet Union collapsed. No one could imagine that this may happen in January 1990. And there should have been a lot of courage and love to your people to publicly denounce the brutal, bloody attack on civilians, which cost the lives of more than 100 innocent people. And he was the one who left the Communist Party of Soviet Union as a result of anti-Azerbaijani position of the Soviet government. That was also a very courageous step, because Soviet government and Soviet system was still very strong and very suppressive. And he had to take that into account, but for him, the matter of national interest of Azerbaijani people, national pride and justice were prevailing all his personal concerns. So that was a difficult time for him and for all of us, but our family was together. The same was when Azerbaijan was full of disturbance and disorientation and chaos during the civil war, when people of Azerbaijan only saw the salvation in him and invited him to come in the most difficult times. He was already 70, he was not a young man, and to come to lead Azerbaijan in 1993 was a really very courageous step, and once again demonstrated his love and commitment to Azerbaijani people. And when Azerbaijanis consider him as a founder of the modern Azerbaijan, they're absolutely right, and respect to him based on several layers. It's not just one factor, it's all his life. In the most difficult times, to lead the country, to find the best solution, to demonstrate wisdom and courage at the same time. This is a very rare quality for politicians, especially taking into account that Azerbaijan is not a big power. Azerbaijan was already occupied by Armenia, and we faced enormous economic difficulties. Inflation was more than 1,000%. There was a total unemployment and poverty. And army basically did not exist. So in these circumstances, to keep country together and to put it on the track of development and to come to where we are now, really, it's a big personality can achieve that. And our target, and mine personally, was to continue his policy, of course taking into account the changing world and changing Azerbaijan, to modernize the country, to strengthen our independence, so that never again we live under domination of others, to build strong economy, self-sufficient economy, and to provide better conditions for people to live. So when we talk about modern Azerbaijan, not only when we celebrate his 100th anniversary, but in general, we all should understand that the foundation was laid by him, and if not for his leadership in the difficult times of 90s, today's Azerbaijan would have been absolutely different, and it's even very dangerous and scary to imagine what kind of problems we may have had.
I think it would be fair to say that Azerbaijan has come a long way, carving out its unique path politically, economically, and socially, and in terms of playing this delicate role in the evolving geopolitical landscape of the world. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about China-Azerbaijan relations. You recently described China-Azerbaijan relations as excellent. Where do you think it is, and how do you want to take it to the next level?
Yes, I can only confirm what I said. I consider relations excellent. And this analysis, this word, also covers a very broad agenda of bilateral relations and very clear prospects for future cooperation. I think what has been achieved in bilateral relations between us was only the beginning of the very long journey, I hope a journey of strategic cooperation. Because today, when we look at the political map of the region and also on map of transportation routes, we see how our countries are closely aligned with each other. For instance, if we take basic issues on global international agenda, our positions coincide. They coincide on issues related to sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity, non-interference into affairs of other countries. They coincide on issues related to economic cooperation, and we see the growing numbers of mutual trade and especially the potential. We see the emerging new transportation routes which will unite our countries even more in the future, and that will be also a big contribution to regional security and stability, because when countries are united in a format of cooperation which is mutually beneficial, it adds to regional stability, predictability, prosperity, and development. So with respect to foreign policy priorities and agenda, I see a lot of similarity between the policies of China and Azerbaijan, as well as in any other direction. And relatively recently, our relations have been intensified even more. And of course, my meetings with President Xi Jinping play an important role in elaboration of the direction, and they put very clear targets for development. But at the same time, communications on the lower level, on the level of governmental officials, level of parliamentarians and representatives of society, and also relations between our parties. Also, these create a very special format of cooperation. Therefore, when I say that, I think that it's only the beginning of a long journey. I think that that covers these views. And with respect to the future of bilateral relations, we have a unanimity in policy between China and Azerbaijan. So I really can only reaffirm what I said, that relations are excellent, and they will be even better than that.
You talked about your meeting with President Xi. You met him on several occasions. What do you think of him as a leader? What kind of person does he strike you as?
I had a chance to meet President Xi Jinping many times in China and also on the sidelines of international events. And I have great respect to him, and I always was impressed with his vision, his intelligence, openness, and being deeply aware about bilateral relations between us. Because China, as a global power, has a very broad foreign policy agenda, much broader than one of Azerbaijan's, but at the same time being deeply aware about the substance of our cooperation, about prospects of our cooperation, really demonstrate that President Xi is a very responsible person, and this resulted in the very successful foreign policy. And you know that year after year, the number of friends of China in the world is growing, and this is due to this wise policy. And we can only, applaud to what he is doing in development of his country, in providing assistance to those who need this assistance. And this, I think, is one of the unique cases on global arena, especially now, when you just help countries which need help and which cannot get assistance on time and from other sources. I can give you one example about Azerbaijan. When COVID started, we were in a big trouble because we did not have vaccines. And the only country which helped us with vaccines was China. I wrote a letter to President Xi asking to help, and immediately there was a response. We got the first portion of 1 million doses, and we started vaccination in the middle of January, so one of the first in the world. And that was because his policy to help, you know, and how can we forget that? But at the same time, I can tell you that probably you know that there have been countries in the West which stockpiled 5 times more vaccines than they needed. And they left countries who could not produce and could not get access just without vaccination. So they just were, how to say, demonstrating this vaccine nationalism. And also I can tell you that Azerbaijan was one of the countries which publicly struggled against vaccine nationalism as a chair of non-aligned movement. So what I'm trying to say is that this is an example which demonstrates the Chinese policy towards Azerbaijan. And I'm sure the same policy is towards every country which needs help at the time when it is needed. Therefore, as I said, I had many meetings with President Xi Jinping, and as a person, he is very friendly, very respectful, very open, and really, I also, as a person, enjoy communicating with him.
Talking about connectivity and infrastructure projects, cooperation, actually, Azerbaijan holds a record. It has the shortest implementation time, one of the shortest implementation time among all the countries for Belt and Road infrastructure projects. Only 307 days. We're talking about huge infrastructure projects here. How did Azerbaijan do it? How do you look at the merits of the Belt and Road initiative?
You know, one of the targets for our development was to transform Azerbaijan into one of the regional centers for connectivity. Because if you look at the map, you'll see the geographical advantages of Azerbaijan, which is situated just on routes from north to south and east to west and backwards. But lack of transportation infrastructure actually created a situation that our geography was not used. And I was absolutely sure that we can improve that. So we started to invest largely in transportation infrastructure 15 years ago. We started to put large investments in domestic infrastructure because first we needed to upgrade transportation infrastructure at home, and at the same time to build connectivity bridges with our neighbors. So we wanted really to become an important transitor, but for that, geography is not enough, even infrastructure is not enough. You need something more, which is good relations with your neighbors. Because you cannot become a transit country if you do not cooperate with your neighbors. And that was also part of our foreign policy priorities, to build strong relations with the neighboring countries based on shared interest. So when we were, how to say, incorporated in Belt and Road Initiative, we already came with the infrastructure which was available. What we are doing now, we are now only upgrading. For instance, we are expanding our trade seaport because a growing number of cargoes from east to west will, how to say, create problems in handling the cargoes. Our trade seaport was inaugurated several years ago with a capacity of 15 million tons. Now we are upgrading it up to 25 million tons. We are building more vessels in the Caspian, though we have the biggest trade fleet in the Caspian among all other Caspian littoral states, but we are building new vessels, tankers and cargo fleet in order to be able to bring more cargoes. Now we are planning to expand our shipyard so that we can produce not from 6 to 8, but maybe from 10 to 20 vessels per year, because the need for vessels in Azerbaijan and also in the Caspian is growing. We are now modernizing the existing railroad in order to allow more cargoes to pass, so the speed of trains will be higher. So we are doing a lot in order to be well prepared for big cargo flow. We enjoy year after year the growing transportation cargo transportation across Azerbaijan, but I think that the figures can be several times higher. For that, we are actively working also with our Chinese partners and our neighbors to establish this infrastructure connectivity and also administrative connectivity, because we need to have single policy on tariffs. We need to have more interconnection with respect to customs regulations and how to say, to open this gate broadly. So relations between our countries in the future also will play important role in a growing number of cargoes going through Azerbaijan. And as you said, we did everything on time and within a short period of time. And today, Azerbaijani transportation infrastructure already is corresponding the high international standards.
We know that Azerbaijan is also launching this, has launched this Trans-Caspian International Transport Route. How significant is that?
Yeah, this is actually part of Belt and Road Initiative, because we clearly understand that in the current geopolitical situation, Trans-Caspian route is becoming one of the most important for countries of Central Asia. Again, if we look at the map, we will see that there are not many ways for Central Asian countries to transport their cargoes in European direction and backward.
There's a sea lane, there's a Trans-Siberian route, but it takes a lot longer.
Yes, this is one reason. And second reason, of course, certain geopolitical changes and restrictions on transportation routes, sanctions on transportation routes make that transit more complicated. Therefore, if not through the Caspian, then how? And countries of Central Asia, they are developing, they are producing more goods for export, and they're also buying more. Therefore, routes across the Caspian becomes vital. And fortunately, we did our homework a while ago, so prepared everything, so now it will be easier to expand. And the expansion and investments in expansion of transportation infrastructure will be based on the figures of assumed cargo transportation. I visited all the countries of Central Asia last year and this year, and their leaders visited Azerbaijan. Now we have more dynamism in our bilateral relations. First, because we see the need for that, and we always enjoyed excellent relations. But at the same time, the issue of transportation routes, how to say, dictate more active interaction. So I'm sure that when we will look year after year at statistics of transit across the Caspian, we will see growing and growing numbers.
Yeah. I have a set of very impressive data that I want to share with you. Data show that shipping goods from China to Europe takes 36 days on average by sea, 20 days through the Trans-Siberian route, without geopolitical disruptions, as you said, obviously, and only 12 days through the middle corridor using the Baku-Tbilisi car railway.
Exactly.
That is big.
Yes. Yes, this is true, and that is why, by the way, we launched and we initiated the construction of this route, because this route did not exist. It's a new transportation connectivity infrastructure which was initiated by Azerbaijan and was actively supported by our partners in Turkey and Georgia. And in 2017, here in Baku, we had an official inauguration of that project. And at that time, the transportation through the middle corridor was not yet a kind of one of the priorities. Therefore, we invested as much as it was needed for volume of cargoes. But what we are doing now, we already started several months ago. We are upgrading this road, and it will handle 5 times more cargo than originally. Above, we are working very actively on Zangezur corridor, which will be additional road from Azerbaijan to Turkey and Europe. And on Azerbaijani territory, about 70% of construction work has already been done. So through Azerbaijan, there will be not only one route through Baku-Tbilisi-Kars, but also through Zangezur corridor. So all these will create additional opportunities for more cargoes. And at the same time, the transportation through Azerbaijan will also go through the Georgian seaports. And we are looking with big interest at some investment opportunities with respect to that. So really, transportation cooperation will be extremely beneficial for all the countries, but at the same time, which is not less important, it will strengthen ties between the countries. Countries will become more interconnected, more integrated. En route of the corridors, we plan to create a lot of new manufacturing facilities. We don't want only to be a transitor. Yes, it is good from geopolitical point of view, it gives you additional money, but we want to create big industrial zones in Azerbaijan, and we are actually moving in that direction. And I think it could be attractive for Chinese companies to have the manufacturing in our free zone in Alat, which is already operational and which was inaugurated this month. So really, it's a broader picture that one can imagine now.
Yeah, you talk about the cultural value of connectivity of the Belt and Road Initiative, Mr. President. Actually, we were in Mugam Club restaurant 2 days ago, and we were thoroughly impressed by what we saw there. That was, of course, the old caravanserai for people to rest and recover from the ancient Silk Road. Being there feels like, you know, time stopped, as if you could see history unfolding, as if you could see people, commerce, cultures mingle and blend. How do you see the cultural value of trade, of, you know, this, what Chinese call the Belt and Road Initiative? And I know in this country you have this plan to revive the ancient Silk Road as early as the 1990s.
Yeah, definitely. This will create additional spirit, or will contribute to the spirit of friendship and interaction, because countries which were situated on the ancient Silk Road, one of the, how to say, specifics or similarity is that they have a diverse societies, multi-ethnic and multi-confessional societies, and Azerbaijan is part of that positive scenario. Therefore, cultural heritage of Azerbaijan, as you can see with your own eyes, is something which is duly protected by our state, and for us it is an asset which we need to keep, preserve, and hand over to new generations so that they do the same. We managed to preserve our cultural heritage for centuries, though for a long time Azerbaijan was deprived from its statehood. We were not an independent country, but at the same time we kept our national identity, our language, our literature, our music, our traditions, our cultural heritage. So even in the times when we were not independent, we managed to do it. Therefore, definitely we will continue to preserve our cultural heritage, which is part of the world heritage. And at the same time, more connectivity projects with partners will lead to more visits, more tourists, more trade, more interaction, and that will only make richer our culture and our society. So we look at this from this point of view, and we are very fortunate that Azerbaijan, throughout the centuries, and especially during the times of independence really demonstrates high standards of ethnic and religious tolerance, coexistence. All the ethnic groups who live in Azerbaijan, they live as one family, and this is one of the biggest assets. So we are trying to preserve it, and I'm sure we will succeed.
I'm reminded of an old saying that says, when trade stops, war may start. The converse may be true. When there's more trade, there's better chance of people and countries get along.
Absolutely, and also it will strengthen stability, security, to a certain degree, in good sense of the word, interdependence. So there'll be a lot of benefits for people, for countries, and in these circumstances, of course, it will be stable.
President Aliyev, I must tell you that you became quite famous in China, thanks to your interview with a BBC journalist 2 years ago. It went viral, that video, went viral in China. And many people are like, wow, this is what a national leader can do to unbalance coverage of the West. What was it like back then?
Well, I had numerous interviews during the 44 days of a patriotic war, mainly with journalists from the West, and majority of them were, I would say, very aggressive, and they were trying to present Azerbaijan as an aggressor. You know, while we were liberating our territories, we were fighting for our territorial integrity. We did not step on the territory of other country. We were just eliminating the 30-year consequences of occupation and ethnic cleansing which we were facing. And of course, I was sure that Western journalists who come to Azerbaijan to make some, how to say, video footage, and also to meet with me, they were well prepared. It would be naive to imagine that they do not know the history of the conflict, who is the aggressor, who is a victim of aggression, and what is happening. But at the same time, they were trying to present situation, not only during our meeting, because they made a lot of, how to say, reportage in Azerbaijan, as if Azerbaijan is aggressor. So that was absolutely unacceptable, and that once again demonstrates a biased and unbalanced and anti-Azerbaijani approach of the Western media, which reality in which we live for 30 years. This is true.
Yeah, many people think that the Julian Assange hit was a great counterpunch. How did you come up with that?
Well, actually, if you are trying to accuse something of violation, first thing which you should do is to look in the mirror and see, do you have spots on your face or not? What happened to Julian Assange is absolutely unacceptable. This is a brutal violation of freedom of speech. The person is tortured. He was tortured for several years in one embassy. He is tortured now in, I talk about moral tortures. I don't know whether he is physically tortured or not. I cannot say what I don't know. But the person is suffering just because he produced some information which he got from some sources. Maybe he was wrong, maybe he made a, how to say, violation, but in the West they present situation like journalists can do whatever they want and they're immune from any criminal case, and if you arrest journalists, it means that you are a dictator. So I said, look at Julian Assange case, what you've done to the guy, and how can you accuse anyone having this, how to say, very dark page in your history. And as you mentioned, it was more than 2 years ago. And where is Julian Assange now? Still in prison, still in prison. Does anyone talk about him? No.
Back in the day, I was a Washington, D.C. correspondent for 8 years, and I must say I learned a lot in both directions. So, talking about the biased portrait from the Western media of non-Western countries such as Azerbaijan and China. Of course, you don't think that they did justice to these countries, but why do you think is the case? What are the factors behind their misrepresentation and misportrait of the non-Western world, including China and Azerbaijan?
It's difficult for me to say why they use the same techniques against China. Most probably there are reasons for that, but with respect to Azerbaijan, there are a variety of factors. One of them is, which is not the main one, but one of them is that Armenian lobby, which has a big infrastructure in the United States, in France, in some other Western countries, they are attacking Azerbaijan on a regular basis. They corrupt politicians. They penetrate into establishment, in parliaments, in media, in governmental offices, and they target all the arrows at Azerbaijan, and they're creating a kind of atmosphere of Azerbaijanophobia. But this is not the only reason and the main reason. The main reason, I think, is that Azerbaijan pursues independent policy based on its national interests. Azerbaijan, unlike some countries, do not engage in any adventure which is not in line with our priorities and our national interests. In other words, we behave independently and our policy is independent. We will defend our identity and our dignity with all the means which we have. So I think this is a basic reason why Azerbaijan continues to be a target for media attacks, attacks from so-called independent NGOs. We all know that they're not independent. Who can say that human rights, Amnesty International, Freedom House are independent? Look from whom they get the money, who orders the music, and then you will see they're totally dependent.
The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and the like.
Yeah, exactly. They're totally dependent, and they cannot afford even one step right and left which is not agreed with their bosses. But you know, we managed to live in this environment. For me, the most important is not what Western media write about Azerbaijan, but what people of Azerbaijan think about the policy of our government. And as you can, you know, see, and if you talk to the people, you will see what they think about our government, whether we are right thing or not. And the consolidation of our society and you know, strong support, strong public support is not only, of course, mainly generated by our policy and also liberation of the former occupied territory, but also it is a reaction to anti-Azerbaijani propaganda. And if somebody in the West think that by insulting the government officials, by spreading slander and rumors, they can influence public opinion of Azerbaijan, maybe they're right, but their influence is not in the direction they would like to see. On the contrary, society consolidates even more because we see that this is unjust. We've been occupied for 30 years and there was no denouncement of Armenian occupation. And now
there's only this mentioning of quote-unquote peaceful settlement.
Exactly, only peaceful settlement, not mentioning of
which is the jargon of double standards.
Exactly. These are double standards, and our society very well understands that. And also, it's important once again to see it's not only interview of some journalists, but the governments. Now we are facing very, to say, unjustified attacks from French government. Can you imagine? France became the biggest advocate for Armenia, and okay, it's their business, but they became the biggest anti-Azerbaijani source in Europe. They attack us on every direction, and their foreign policy statements and statements of officials are beyond any political ethics. So they're accusing us of what we hasn't done during the war and did not apologize for that. And they accuse us now of what we're doing on our territory. And look who is doing that. The country which bans Corsican language, which suppresses brutally self-determination movement in Corsica, they advocate for self-determination of Armenians in Karabakh. How can that happen? During the war, when the aggression, political aggression was beyond any borders, I said that if they want to have Nagorno-Karabakh Republic somewhere, they can have it on their own territory. For instance, around the city of Marseille, where there are so many Armenians, let them announce Nagorno-Karabakh Republic there, and we will recognize it. And the country which still continues its colonial policy, look at the island of Mayotte, it's French colony, New Caledonia, French colony, and they talk about human rights. So this is a political hypocrisy. And when we say what I say now, you will see immediately they will again organize all the media and will start insulting, attacking, spreading rumors about Azerbaijan, its leaders, and its policy.
Talking about territorial integrity, there's something that is very dear and near to the hearts of many Chinese. That is the issue of Taiwan. There's this outside intervention on the issue of Taiwan. You earlier said that you don't support efforts to try to split China. Can you elaborate?
Well, we always supported and continue to support China's territorial integrity and the policy of one China and the policy of reunification of China. This policy has been articulated many years ago and was reconfirmed on many occasions, and it is absolutely unchanged and will never be changed. First, because China for us is a friendly country. Second, because we always support laws and principles of international law. And international law cannot be treated selectively. And those countries who want to treat international law selectively will only lose their reputation, because international law clearly elaborates that territorial integrity principle is a fundamental principle of international law. Self-determination of the people should not contradict with territorial integrity with any country. This is fundamental principles of international law. Therefore, our position on one China policy is absolutely clear. And I hope that some Western governments also follow this position.
On Azerbaijan-Armenia relations, we know that there has been this ceasefire, but the situation remains complex given all the history behind. So, Mr. President, what do you think of a peace agreement? When can we expect it? And if so, what would it look like, in your opinion?
I think it can be achieved in the nearest future. Why I think so? Because Armenia already had to make a very important statement that they not only recognize territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, which they officially confirmed last October and reconfirmed many times, but also this May they specified, because we demanded to specify, that they recognize Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. And they recognize Azerbaijan's territorial integrity on the territory of 86.6 thousand square kilometers, which means Karabakh included, and 8 Azerbaijani enclaves on Armenian territory included. So this actually is an important statement. And after that, the only thing which is left, just to put it on paper and to sign it. And our position on peace agreement after the Second Karabakh War ended was that this agreement must be based on international law, norms, and principles. And we elaborated 5 basic international principles which should be the basis for peace agreement. And negotiations were held several times and will continue in the end of June. And the only major point of disagreement was exactly what I've said about Karabakh being part of Azerbaijan to be officially recognized by Armenia. So as I already said, they said A, saying that Karabakh is Azerbaijan. Now they need to say B to sign it. And after that, agreement can be achieved. And I think that if what they say, I mean what Armenians say, they really mean, if it is not again a political maneuver, if it is not again the, how to say, old story when they were always trying to delay the process, then we can reach the peace agreement and sign it by the end of the year. And that will really be important geopolitical factor that will put an end to long-lasting confrontation, will create real peace in the Caucasus, will lead to opening of all communications. And also I'd like to add that with respect to Armenian minority in Azerbaijan, and we already officially stated that their rights and their security will be duly protected by us based on Azerbaijani constitution. But Azerbaijan is a country which hosts tens of different ethnic groups, including Armenians, and we never had any problem based on religious or ethnic ground. Therefore, Armenians who live in Karabakh region of Azerbaijan will have the same rights and security guarantees as any other Azerbaijani citizen. So I think this is completely in line with international law norms, and I think that this position of Azerbaijan is appreciated by international community.
President Aliyev, let's talk about one of your favorite subjects, sports and fitness.
Good.
You posted a video of you doing pull-ups on your 60th birthday?
Yes.
15 of them. I mean, wow. That was impressive. You could have done more, right?
I used to do more. I showed it only for the first time. When I was younger, I never showed it because I thought for a young man to do many times is natural. Why I did it? Because I want our young generation to do the same. And I want to say that when you're 60, if you don't have bad habits, if you have regular sport exercises, you can do it. So that was my message to young generations, that if you think that when you're 60 you cannot do it, you are wrong. You can do it. Whether I could have done more or no, maybe yes, but that would not look very pleasant.
Very wise. You also made no secret about your passion for weightlifting, even in front of your good friend, President Erdogan in Turkey.
That was an easy part.
Spontaneous moment, right?
That was an easy part. That was just, yeah.
And
it was not a very heavy. It was not heavy.
Well, you still did it. It was impressive that you were transforming your personal passion for sport into something bigger. I mean, look at Baku. It's a site of F1 in downtown city. And also, Baku hosted the Euro 2020, the 2015 European Games, the first of its kind. Really, talk to us about your passion for sport. Why sport?
Well, first, because I love sport. Second, because I did sport during my life with certain breaks, which unfortunately I just abandoned it, but then restarted. And when I was young and doing very active sport, and when I stopped and when I restarted, it was very easy for me to bring my shape back. Second, because sport is an important factor of life of society. In the times of occupation, sporting victories were a kind of a symbolic compensation in the conscience of our people for defeat in the First Karabakh War. So we demonstrated that we can win, And that became a very important factor of patriotism in Azerbaijan, because when your athletes win, when they raise a flag, when they anthem, yeah, you're full of emotions and you're full of pride. So that was an important factor of young generation to be patriotic, because I clearly understood that without that, we will not be able to win. And yes, we invested a lot in our defense capability, in training of our military servicemen. We did a lot in order to prepare ourselves for Second Karabakh War. But I can tell you now, after 2.5 years have passed, that the main factor of our victory was spirit. And those who were liberating the land, they have never seen Karabakh in their life because they were young. They were not born when Karabakh was occupied. So what led them to that? That was a spirit, patriotism, and dignity. Sport is that. And also for physical health, because we want our society to be healthy. We want our society to be physically fit. So for that, sport is number one. Of course, good nutrition, no bad habits, but sport is on top of that probably. And also now we work on a mass sport so that we have sporting infrastructure in every region, and we already done it. At the same time, this is international prestige, because the first inaugural European Games, really, they opened Azerbaijan to Europe. Formula One, we already held it for 7 times, especially taking into account that it takes place on the city roads. It is a city presentation. For those who have never seen Baku, 500 million audience Formula One has, 500 million audience. After first Formula One, we had growth of tourism 20%, and then before COVID, every year 10–15%. So it brought us a lot of international tourists, a lot of foreign currency into the country. So it is a lot of factors which, how to say, dictate that every government should pay big attention to sport development.
I remember Euro 2020 well.
We had also the final match of European League in Baku in 2019, and Euro 2020. Yeah, so Baku became already the international destination for big sporting events. We also had Islamic Solidarity Games in 2017. So can you imagine, 2015 European Games, inaugural, and 2017 Islamic Solidarity Games in one city in 2 years. And this also is a demonstration of what Azerbaijan is. It's just on the edge of Europe and Asia. It's part of Muslim world. At the same time, it is part of Europe. It is a very unique position of our country, and the policy of the country and the status of society is a reflection of this.
Mm-hmm. President Aliyev, coming up are the Hangzhou Asian Games and also the World University Games, the Universiad in Chengdu, China. What do you want to say to the athletes, the participants? What are expectations for those games to be taking place in China?
Well, only wish success to organizers. I'm sure they'll be organized on the highest possible level. I know how sporting events are being organized in China. I was at the Beijing Olympics in 2008 and spent several days in your beautiful country. As you can imagine, we are not participants to Asian Games, but we will be present with big team at the University Games. You think with more than 150 athletes, so it will be several times more than ever before. So wish athletes victory, organizers success, and Chinese people to enjoy this festival.
Finally, Azerbaijan is still a mysterious and remote country in the opinions of many everyday Chinese. I'm sitting with the president of the country, so I'm tempted to ask you, can you maybe tell the Chinese viewers of our program why Azerbaijan, why they should consider Azerbaijan as their next tourist destination?
Well, first of all, people of Azerbaijan are very friendly and hospitable. Second, we have very modern hotel infrastructure. We have a diverse nature. We have 9 climatic zones, and the country's territory is not very big, so you can reach either by train or by car, or maximum by plane easily. Roads infrastructure is one of the best. Cuisine, I think, also one of the best.
We had so much kebab.
And well, the weather is very friendly, so you can ski in the mountains, you can swim in the Caspian Sea, you go hiking, you go to see mud volcanoes, you go in the Karabakh mountains and woods, so lakes and rivers. And also, I think that Chinese tourists will feel that people of Azerbaijan have a very big sympathy with China, where they know your country and they know that we are friends on a political level. Therefore, they will feel themselves at home.
President Aliyev, thank you so much once again for welcoming us into your country, and thank you for this interview.
Thank you.